So here is some sage. We're going to cleanse the energy. I'm going to talk today about intuition and anxiety. And I think this is a theme that's really common for people to get confused. Doubt pops in all the time. And I think imposter syndrome is par for the course when it comes to spirituality, especially if you're working to be a practitioner. Imposter syndrome is something that I dealt with for years and years and years, and I really had to work on. And I know this happens in a lot of different fields, though being a telepath, it's something that comes up a lot. It's really intense of an experience when you're working really diligently to trust what it is that you're hearing, though it's easy to doubt yourself because telepathy is a really interesting experience where you don't get necessarily clean-cut validation. You don't necessarily even get proof if you're even with the being, the animal, the nonverbal human that you're talking to, which usually I'm not because I work remote. But if I can see them on camera, especially if it's an animal, right? Because that's about 50% of my business. You can't tell with the facial expression or the way they're moving their body, right? So you really have to trust and dig into what it is that you're offering. And especially so if they're saying something in a way that really doesn't resonate with the human, which happens a lot too. And because of that, faith and trust is really, really pivotal when it comes to trusting intuition and allowing yourself to unapologetically express what it is that you're receiving and that you think is, the spirit guidance, and offer it up without any need for external validation for proof in the pudding, right? And allowing yourself to be okay if you got it wrong, because that happens a lot. It's just part of the game. So we're going to cleanse the energy and set some space. I'm going to take a moment to say a prayer, call in some intention. Okay, so that should cleanse the energy. I'm also going to access I've got one little tuning fork that I'm going to use. And I'm just going to ask Spirit to support and assist. Okay. And just calling in Spirit, asking for support and assistance. Thank you, Spirit, for being present. Thank you for your omnipotence, for your love. We are so grateful that you are always present and assisting us. I am honored to be a child in Spirit. And I just want to acknowledge, Spirit, that I have full loyalty and fealty to you. I'm so honored and always in awe, constantly humbled by your presence, your love, your guidance. Thank you for helping me to right my wrongs. Thank you for forgiving me in my ignorance and always being there to offer some kind of creative, unique support. Thank you for being patient with me when I steer off the path. I'm going to ask Spirit that you be with me today to call in a beautiful community, to have wonderful heart-oriented connections, to filter out any delusions and distortions, as the Rare Gazelle likes to say, and to protect my energetics, also to help me move through divine spirit, love, and light, and assist and support and connect with anyone who would be happy to receive any messages or communicate about anything spiritual today. I'm so grateful for your presence. Thank you for creating a protection so that I don't take on anyone else's energy and no one else takes on my energy. And thank you also, Spirit, for assisting me to clear out, deter any evil eye, and also assist and support that we send out love and help and creativity and inspiration to anyone and everyone who could be utilizing any loving energy today. Thank you, Spirit. As above, so below, and so it is, I will be done. Okay, awesome. So today's topic, and we can chat on anything you guys want if you hop in here. Just let me know. I'm happy to answer questions. I can tune into your energy field if that feels good to you. And we can just see what it is that we want to connect on. Though my idea today was talking about intuition versus anxiety. So, common thing is that people have an intuitive hit and then they immediately doubt it. And intuition is a really intriguing sensation. So if we talk about our senses, there's like a handful of senses that society has deemed appropriate for everyone to have, right? We can smell, we can touch, we can taste, we can hear, we can see, all of these. Though there's actually many, many more senses, and because we don't utilize those senses in the everyday, or it's not apropos to have these experiences, they've been deemed or labeled your extrasensory perceptions, right? Or, in the spiritual world, we call them clairs, your clair abilities. And all of these are senses. So intuition, which is, right, just an umbrella term for some extrasensory access to your senses, it often is quite quiet and subtle, and we have to strengthen it as a muscle. Now, there is a tarot reader that I love to watch, and she's such a hoot. She's got a great personality. And she says something that I used to say a lot when I was younger, or hear a lot, but I hadn't thought about it in years until she said it. And she says, they hate your guts, right? They hate your guts. And as soon as she said it, I realized, oh, of course that statement makes so much sense, because our gut is where we get a lot of our intuition, a lot of our consciousness. The plasma force that is intuitive hits flows through our gut zone, which, to be more accurate, would be your mesentery. So your mesentery is known as your second brain, which is not really accurate because your mesentery developed before your brain did, your first brain. Your mesentery is a really large organ that sits behind all of your internal organs down in your pelvis area. And it is literally the brain that helps your colon, all of your intestines, that whole zone communicate and function in the way it needs to, right? And it is an incredible, it looks amazing too. If you were ever to see it splayed out, it looks very much like an encephalopod, right? And this is where a tremendous amount of our nervous system and nerve endings innervate. Now, if any of you guys have worked through your nervous system and understanding that when we get anxious or really, hey, Salegra, can you hear me, honey? Will you let me know that you can hear me okay? When we start to realize that we're having some kind of anxiety experience, or, we're emotionally distraught, we're in turmoil, maybe even if we want to be extreme, it's PTSD, then we can, if we have the knowledge, this is a nervous system dysfunction, right? And the most efficient and really the only way that we're going to heal that, even though we can do it indirectly, is to bring some sort of calm and de-stressing to our nervous system. And so the mesentery, as the gut, is really a huge zone down in the pelvic region where we're actually going to be receiving and disseminating or registering our intuition, okay? Though we're so used to receiving information up here in our first brain. And that's something that we had to learn. That wasn't something that was natural for us. When we're a babe, we're highly telepathic. We're really, really tuned in to our nervous system. Hey, Salegra, can you hear me? Can you hear me okay? So when we have an intuitive notion or an intuitive hit, because we've been entrained to receive more information through our first brain, very quickly, our brain, our mind, our thoughts, our doubts, our anxiety, our nervous system may override the intuition. So it can come in quite cleanly and clearly and distinctly, though it's like a flash in the pan. It doesn't last long. And then our mind starts working to overlay. And that's the experience where the doubt starts to come in. Now, most people experience anxiety, right? It's something that's actually quite normal and natural in life. And one of my favorite speakers, Dr. Mate Gabor, speaks about how when we are a very young infant, anxiety is very natural. Anxiety is a nervous system reaction that is the only way the baby learns can get the caretaker's attention, because most of the time our caretakers aren't telepathic. They're not receiving the very thorough energetic messages that infants are sending out, right? So this infant also has an overstimulated nervous system, and it feels a sensation, a sensory overstimulation that is expressed as anxiety. So it cries, it screams, it wails, which is natural. If the caretaker makes it to the infant in time to meet the need, right? And there is a time frame for this, because if a baby's left too long, there's studies shown that it's going to cry 2, 3 more times longer than it would have if a caretaker had have received that infant within this certain amount of time, that it would have met its needs in an efficient manner. And so if this infant has its needs met in a timely manner consistently, the anxiety subsides. And then the infant learns satiation. And they learn in that exchange of experiencing anxiety and then satiation and needs met, how to start to regulate their nervous system. So it's a really healthy learning experience. Though, if they don't have the experience of the anxiety being calmed and quelled and having satiation to some extent, then it starts to anchor and it roots, and it becomes a habituated loop pattern that sits into our nervous system and creates dysfunction, which is what most of us have. We have unfortunate anxiety dysfunctions. Most everybody has some form of anxiety. And sometimes it can be very hard to recognize, because a lot of people have learned how to make their anxiety work for them. And so if we start to understand that anxiety is a very familiar experience for us, we've had it most of our life, and because of that, we are very attracted to what's familiar, even if it's not good for us. This is why people get in bad relationships, right? It's why they repeat these patterns that they don't want to do, but they seem to constantly be magnetized to or find them in some way. It's because we're wired to go towards what's familiar. That seems to be safe, at least to our subconscious. So if we're having an intuitive hit and then anxiety comes in, we're going to lean into what's more familiar, right? Which is going to be the anxiety or the doubt, because doubt is something else that is bred into us from a very young age, when we're not receiving back the reassurance and the validation that what we're doing is good or is okay. So it's really, really common for us to feel uncomfortable and iffy when it comes to our intuition. And the way I have found to start to support myself in balancing this experience, where there's intuition, there's anxiety, there's doubt, all of these things, is one, I like to compartmentalize. I like to acknowledge that I got an intuitive hit. I'm not too sure about it, right? I might not know if that was accurate or not, but it came in clear, and it's information that I want to feed into. In another vein, I also have this doubt that's coming up, okay? And then maybe also anxiety. And so this is the time where it's really important to become an observer. Hey guys, welcome in. Feel free to drop a comment. Let me know that you can hear me well. That would be really helpful. Thank you so much. And so if I can start to step back and move into the observational role, I can really start to suss out the difference between what's happening here. So in one way, I've got my intuition here. I've also have doubt experiences. Maybe I'm feeling some type of way in my nervous system. And there's anxiety or whatever I want to call it over here. And then I've probably got thoughts rolling as well. Well, if I can compartmentalize and allow all of these things to exist, they're allowed to be here, right? And I can kind of tune into each one in any now moment. I don't have to say that one's better than the other. They can all exist and be here. They can all be true at the same time. It doesn't mean that your doubt fully negates your intuition. It simply means that you're having intuition at the same time that you're experiencing doubt. So how come they can't both exist at the same time? It shouldn't be a big issue, right? Okay, so also, if you learn to read your baseline frequency, this is a huge help for me. So this is a term I use, but it's really just your resting state, right? So your baseline frequency is something that has helped me as a fundamental when it comes into accessing more of my intuitive abilities. It's really, really helpful, and it's very easy to do. It's a simple foundation. And so your baseline frequency, your resting state, is just an experience when you're very neutral, which means you're not hungry, you're not tired, you're not overly excited, you're not anxious or angry or emotional in any type of way. It's your norm. Now, if you are somebody who is chronically depressed, then that depression you might decide is your baseline frequency. So you have to know what's right for you. So you find your baseline frequency and you memorize it. Okay? Once you have memorized your baseline frequency through and through, then through the power of deduction, you start removing what's overlaid on top of it. Okay? And what can really help with this process is something called interoceptivity. Now, your interoceptivity is how you know when you are hungry, when you're tired, when you need to pee. It's your internal body processes that gives you information and sensation, but it's not an external tactile touch. It's an internal feeling or sensory perception. Okay? We have interoceptors, just like we have receptors. And interoceptivity is one reason when women probably experience this more than men, because we have a flood of hormones happening, but sometimes we get these uncontrollable bouts of crying, right? Or it just comes out of nowhere. And we just start to cry. We get overwhelmed. Now, it's very common for us to judge that, right? Because society doesn't deem that appropriate. When we're an adult, as a child, it's not a big deal. But as an adult, if you just kind of burst out and emote and start crying, it can be embarrassing, right? And immediately our mind is going to tell us that we're feeling overwhelmed or we're sad or we're overjoyed or whatever it is. But more common than not, it's actually just an overstimulation into your interoceptors. Like how our receptors get overstimulated. Our interoceptors are overstimulated and it brings out this bout of cry. There doesn't have to be any emotions to it, but often we trick ourselves and tell ourselves that this is an emotional experience when it's really not. It's a sensory overload, right? And so it's very important to start to notice how you're experiencing your senses. So intuition is sensory perception outside of thought, okay? Feeling is senses. When we feel something, we're sensing something, okay? Feeling can be tactile touch, or it can be, a sensation internally. An emotion is when we add thought onto a feeling. So an emotion is when we start perceiving or interpreting what that feeling or sense means to us or is or what have you. Intuition in a pure form is outside of thought. It's without thought. Even if your intuition comes through clear knowing, it's pure before thinking comes in. Thinking comes in very quickly because the mind wants to solve a problem. So if you're not sure and you get an intuitive hit, the mind's immediately going to find a solution for that uncertainty. And one solution is just doubt and anxiety and to disregard it, right? That's a quick solution. And the mind's going to find the most efficient way to solve something, which doesn't mean it's accurate, right? It's a problem solver. And sometimes it has to create a problem in order to solve it. It's very interesting like that. So when we have intuition in our mesentery and we're feeling it in our gut zone, but then the mind kicks in and we start interpreting what it is that this means. Okay, now here we start having an overlay which gets confusing. But if you can compartmentalize it, if you can allow it to be, intuition is being experienced, doubt is also being experienced. Here's some anxiety, here's some thoughts, right? All of them are allowed to exist at once. And intuition is muscle memory. It takes practice. Intuition is not loud and it's not necessarily constant. It's not like thoughts. It's not going to repetitively repeat itself. It's not going to constantly say the same thing over and over and over incessantly. Intuition comes in quick and releases. It could be a controlled, sustained thing, especially if you're in danger, right? A lot of us have had that where we just can't shake the feeling, right? And then finally, because it's sustained so long, we moved forward and trusted it. And that usually has to do with guidance protection coming in, right? That's often, another being or a third party or guardian angels or what have you, also ensuring that the intuition is sustained, okay? So when we have these senses through intuitive hits, it's very important to acknowledge them. Even if you don't follow it, I personally like to acknowledge spirit or what have you, that's my word, and say, you know what, spirit, I received that intuitive hit. Thank you so much, even if I'm not going to follow it. I'm not going to listen to the intuition right now, though I want to continue experiencing it. Thank you so much, Spirit. I love you. Okay? And that's a good way to let guidance or consciousness know that you're still desiring that experience. Just because you didn't utilize it and move through that track doesn't mean you want it to go away. And we need to make that differentiation to Spirit because thy will be done. If you don't want something and you push it away, then the energy is going to read that you don't want it. So you need to clarify the difference, right? Okay, so I was watching this video the other day, and you guys correct me if I'm, wrong, because some of these videos that it's like the AI voice, I'm not going to take the time to do a ton of research to prove all the facts. I just find it an interesting concept if it's something that I'm listening to. This video was talking about how Grok 4, Elon Musk's new very high-end AI, was utilized by, I think it was Harvard students, and these were scientists, researchers, and they plugged in all biblical texts that they have found known to man, including the Ethiopian Bible, which has over 100 books, the book of Enoch, all of the miracles that ever have been spoken or laid out in these text documents into Grok AI to have the AI analyze it. And Grok found a very specific pattern throughout all of the miracles throughout this time frame in history. And so, as this video said, these scientists, these researchers are stunned. They said that even 2 of them changed their field of study because of this outcome. And I had to chuckle to myself because when it laid out the pattern it found, it was very clearly the instructions of the law of manifestation, which is something that's quite well known to us in the spiritual community. You know, The Secret made it even bigger outside of the spiritual community. And I thought it was so funny because for the science brain people, and it's a phenomenal discovery. It's pretty incredible that different people in different timelines and periods of time are playing out the same pattern through prayer. This has to do with prayer, right? So one of the steps in the process of prayer in order to achieve a miracle, right, was the faith component. Now, faith, that word kind of denotes religion or spirituality. So that word can turn people off if that's not something they're attracted to. But I really appreciated how this video reframed the experience of faith, because it was comparing it or relating it to the double slit theory. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, where basically it was a really cool study. Please look it up, and I'm going to paraphrase this and probably botch it, but it was showing how when there's infinite possibilities in the field, things are just energetically waving, right? They're not in form, okay? And once an observation comes in, it creates a material form. And this is how I'm going to say it anchors a timeline. So it was a phenomenal theory that shows that by observing something, we bring it into creation. Without observation, all things exist. But once it's observed, it anchors it into actuality or existence or experience, right? It went from like particles into waveform. So with that knowing, they were relating how faith and trust and hope and all of these things are actually you anchoring into the observational role within consciousness. And through the formula of how we anchor something into being, it must be observed. And by having devout faith in self and spirit is, you know, what this video is about, because it was talking about prayer. We're becoming the ultimate observer, and we're anchoring a reality into existence. And I thought that was so cool, because in your intuition, it's very important to have trust, right? Even if you're wrong, it's very important for us to trust that we received an intuitive hit for a reason, and we want to move forward with it. Even if we're moving forward through doubt and uncertainty, you still believe in yourself. Right? You are allowed to access and utilize your intuition. And the more you do that, the more you observe yourself trusting in your intuition, the clearer it gets, and the more the mental chatter and anxiety and the doubt will subside. It's a really cool experience. And trust for me is something that has helped me get very clear, like ringing a bell, very clear on intuitive hits, because I have so much trust in my intuition, and I'm very comfortable in uncomfortability, which is very important because intuition is malleable, right? It's not clean-cut scientific proof that's clear as day for everyone to see. And so in that, we have to suspend part of ourself in a way where maybe this is true, maybe it's not. And sometimes it's also important to understand that, at least from my belief system, there's infinite timelines, right? There's infinite possibilities. And therefore, if I'm tuning into something intuitively, it is a probability. And this is something that tarot teaches so wonderfully. I really love watching tarot. It's like my guilty pleasure, because I love using it to study timelines. Because what's happening with a really clean, experienced tarot reader is they're offering up a plausible timeline. It does not mean that it's what's going to anchor, especially if this reading or timeline is offering warning, okay? So you're getting a possible prophetic message. If you trust in that and you take heed and listen to the warning and shift your trajectory, you won't play out that timeline. That possibility will not anchor. And because of this, it's very easy for people to poke holes in intuition because they want a black or white situation. Though we're dealing with quantum physics, infinite timelines, tons of plausibilities and possibilities. And so it doesn't mean that your intuition is wrong if it proved not to be true in an experience or that person's life or what have you. It simply means that you could have tapped into a timeline that shifted, right? And often it's important that it shifts. The whole point of the intuition might have been to help you shift a timeline. And through that, it's important not to need the validation. That can trip you up a lot because you can never prove to anyone else, you can prove to yourself through and through, that you shifted a timeline, right? Because you can't show that unless, we get access to all the information of CERN. We start getting to go back through these stargates and portals and having real experiences in these other timelines. But they are not giving us that information now, are they? So anyway, this is something I wanted to chat on because I know that doubt can be such a debilitating experience with intuition. I work with a lot of people who are either really desiring to up-level their intuitive knowings, their self-knowing for sure, right? That's a big one, know thyself, and that can feel so daunting to so many of us. And also a lot of people who are either intuitive practitioners or desire to be, and one of the biggest hang-ups is that doubt and imposter syndrome. Though it's a really important lesson for us to get through and overcome. It's a trial by fire. And the doubt doesn't have to be demonized. We can trust that the doubt has purpose and you can befriend it. You can allow it to be something that is teaching you and showing you about yourself. Because the doubt itself isn't the issue. The anxiety itself isn't the issue. It's your relationship to it. So how do you perceive it, right? How are you having a story with the experience of doubt? Because it's all about our perspective and reframing. And most of the time, the way in which we experience something isn't fact-based. It's about our perceptions and how we feel and interpret it. And that's very malleable. Your entire world can change in a half a second if you just reframe things. And that's an incredible experience. And in theory, that can be done very simply, but it doesn't make it easy, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed this little chat on intuition and anxiety. I'm so happy to be back with you guys. I'm going to be coming live, I think every Wednesday and Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to join me, jump on the chat. I'll even open it up to readings for intuitive hits, see what we get. And let's talk about all things metaphysical, spiritual, emotional intelligence, what have you. Feel free to ask me anything. If it's in my purview, I'll be happy to answer it. And if not, we can chat on it. So I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.